Good afternoon, East Coast. Good morning, West Coast. Welcome, everybody, to my second iteration of ADHD Preacher Gospel Streams His Sermon Prep Process. I am Gospel. Thank you for joining us today. Once again, I am preaching at church in Jersey. For those who asked, it is South Presbyterian Church of Bergenfield, New Jersey, and I will attempt to remember to drop a link somewhere so you can go and see the final product, because they record and share their sermons out, so their worship services, so you can actually see what was wrought and how my amazing joke landed. So if you have not seen this before, what's about to happen is I am going to run through the process that I normally run through for preparing for a sermon for Sunday. I'm preaching at South again on November 17th. So this is me putting it together and sharing it with you. And I hope that it is enlightening and enriching and all the good stuff. And also I have to do it anyway, so I might as well, share. Last time I didn't do this, and I mean to do it, and I'm going to do it right now. And ideally, every time I do this, we're going to start with a moment of prayer. Let us pray. God of justice, mercy, and kindness, I ask your blessings on this hour of preparation. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be a sacrifice acceptable and pleasing to you. In the name of the one who was and is and shall be evermore. Amen. All right, so a little bit of a different vibe this week than last week. Ooh, scene change. By the way, shout out to Amateur Fantasy Edits, all one word, on DeviantArt for the really dope background, library background that I will use for a while. Thank you for your AI probably service, and if not AI, props, because that was an amazing background. So a little bit of a different thing than last week. Last week I was like, I know what I'm preaching about. I'm not going to deal with the lectionary. That's not even a thing. This week I am going to go to the lectionary and see what the lectionary has to offer. So if you're not familiar, the Bible's like really long. There's a lot of it, and it's very easy to get lost. And if you're trying to preach, the deal is that in the Reformed tradition, that is the Presbyterian tradition, you're not actually doing worship. You're not doing church right if you don't preach the Bible, and ideally preach like a chunk of the Bible at a time. And so every time I'm prepping a sermon, I need some Bible, ideally at least two Bible, that are going to support the sermon that I'm going to give. Sometimes I walk in and say, I know exactly what I'm going to do. That was my first sermon prep. I was like, I know what I'm going to do. Let me share it with you. This time is I am going to let other people decide what my texts are, and I'm going to see what sermon comes out of the texts that have been selected. And my default for that is this thing called the Revised Common Lectionary. There are a bunch of different lectionaries that you can use. The Revised Common was the one that was sort of popular when I went to seminary. God, did I start at seminary 15 years ago? I started in 2008, 16 years ago? Doing this for a while. So the Revised Common Lectionary was the popular lectionary at the time, and it's the one that I still default to. If this keeps happening, if I keep doing this, I will start to look at maybe there are some other lectionaries. The big downside to the Revised Common Lectionary is it does not actually preach all of the Bible. It skips over some big chunks. I think there's only one Sunday a year that it covers Daniel or something silly like that, or one Sunday in the cycle, because it goes in a 3-year cycle, so you're not hearing the same thing every year. And by and large, by 3 years, people have forgotten what sermon you preached 3 years ago on that Sunday. So you just get to... There are preachers who have file folders full of their past sermons, and they'll just preach an oldie but a goodie. I have not consistently been anywhere long enough to really set that up. So not a thing I worry about. But all right, so every week that you've got a particular selection, often you'll find that these are described as the blank Sunday after Pentecost, or in this case proper 28. There's a whole bunch of different ways to identify it, but for this year it is the lectionary text for November 17th, 2024. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read each of these straight from Vanderbilt. Thank you, Vanderbilt, for publishing this. Again, my entire preaching life, Mandy has been sharing this lectionary. It's actually they've actually done a huge update since last I looked, and it looks great. So thank you, Mandy. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to read this. I think this is in the NRSV, the New Revised Standard Version of the Bible, and if it's not, that'll be really interesting. And then I'm going to probably pull the texts in the Common English Bible, which is my standard, and we'll see what happens. All right, starting with the Hebrew Bible lessons. There's 2 Hebrew Bible lessons, 1 Samuel 1, 4 through 20, and 2, 1 through 10. There's a passage from Daniel and the 16th Psalm. There's a Hebrews passage. This is Paul's letter to the Hebrews, and there's a Mark gospel passage. Generally, I will pick any one of the first 3 and the last one as a habit. It's good to get whatever Jesus said, it's good to get that out there. And then whichever one of the other 3 sort of sings to me at the moment that I'm preparing that particular sermon. So, starting with 1 Samuel chapter 1, verses 4 through 20. Hannah's prayers answered. Please enjoy the gender politics here. It's a lot of fun. On the day when Elkanah sacrificed, he would give portions to his wife Peninnah and to all her sons and daughters, but to Hannah he gave a double portion because he loved her, though the Lord had closed her womb. Her rival used to provoke her severely to irritate her because the Lord had closed her womb. So it went on year by year. As often as she went up to the house of the Lord, she used to provoke her. Therefore Hannah wept and would not eat. Her husband Elkanah said to her, Hannah, why do you weep? Why do you not eat? Why is your heart sad? Am I not more to you than 10 sons? After they'd eaten and drunk at Shiloh, Hannah rose and presented herself before the Lord. Now, Eli the priest was sitting on the seat beside the doorpost of the temple of the Lord. Hannah, was deeply distressed and prayed to the Lord and wept bitterly, and she made this vow. O Lord of hosts, if only you will look on the misery of your servant and remember me, and not forget your servant, but will give to your servant a male child, then I will set him before you as a Nazirite until the day of his death. He shall drink neither wine nor intoxicants, and no razor shall touch his head. As she continued praying before the Lord, Eli observed her mouth. Hannah was praying silently, only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore, Eli thought she was drunk. So Eli said to her, How long will you make a drunken spectacle of yourself? Put away your wine. But Hannah answered, No, my lord, I am a woman deeply troubled. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but I have been pouring out my soul before the Lord. Do not regard your servant as a worthless woman, for I have been speaking out of my great anxiety and vexation all this time. Then Eli answered her, Go in peace. The God of Israel grant the petition you have made to him. And she said, Let your servant find favor in your sight. Then the woman went her way and ate and drank with her husband, and her countenance was sad no longer. They rose early in the morning and worshipped before the Lord. Then they went back to their house at Ramah. Elkanah knew his wife Hannah, and the Lord remembered her. In due time, Hannah conceived and bore a son. She named him Samuel, for she said, I have asked him of the Lord. I'm going to do the next passage, and then we're going to talk about thoughts and feels. So we do these all in chunks. So pretty obvious that this is actually the chapter break, and so this is the beginning of chapter 2, and this is the other sort of passage available to us. Hannah prayed and said, My heart exults in the Lord, my strength is exalted in my God. My mouth derides my enemies because I rejoice in your victory. There is no holy one like the Lord, no one besides you. There is no rock like our God. Talk no more so very proudly. Let not arrogance come from your mouth, for the Lord is a God of knowledge, and by him actions are weighed. The bows of the mighty are broken, but the feeble gird on strength. Those who were full have hired themselves out for bread, but those who were hungry are fat with spoil. The barren has borne 7, but she who has many children is forlorn. The Lord kills and brings to life. He brings down to Sheol and raises up. The Lord makes poor and makes rich. He brings low. He also exalts. He raises up the poor from the dust. He lifts the needy from the ash heap to make them sit with princes and inherit a seat of honor. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and on them he has set the world. He will guard the feet of his faithful ones, but the wicked will perish in darkness. For not by might does one prevail. The Lord! His adversaries will be shattered. The Most High will thunder in heaven. The Lord will judge the ends of the earth. He will give strength to his king and exalt the power of his anointed. There's a lot going on here. I'm sorry if that was really quiet. There's like a lot in this. For anybody who says to you that the biblical vision of marriage is one man and one woman, awful lot of polygamy going on in the Hebrew Bible. There's a lot of polygamy in the Hebrew Bible. Don't even play. This is just one of the many moments where dudes have more than one wife. Just the way it is. So here's this dude Elkanah. He's married to Hannah and to Peninnah. They all go to Shiloh to worship. Asterisk on that. That's weird. Not at the time, it's not weird, but from a later perspective, there's a whole thing about that we can talk about later. Hannah has no kids, and the other wife is super catty about it. I like the causality here is great. Her rival used to provoke her severely to irritate her because the Lord had closed her, that is Hannah's, womb. Like, Peninnah has a bunch of kids, but she's nasty to Hannah. And it goes on like this for year after year. As often as she went up to the house of the Lord, she used to provoke her. Hannah wept and would not eat. Elkanah is super dumb here. Sorry, Elkanah. Yes, you are more than 10 sons, but seriously, can I have a baby, please? And that is not the whole thing where the worth of a woman is judged by whether or not she has had children, let alone how many. Gender politics. A lot going on there. And then Eli, the priest, is sitting beside the doorpost, and Hannah is really sad. She's really sad. She's really having a rough time. She's deeply distressed. She prays, "Will you give your servant a male child?" There's a weird implication here. The Lord had closed her womb, implying that she'd had no children whatsoever. But she really wants a baby boy because that's the real good stuff right there. If you will give to your servant a male child, I will set him before you as a Nazarite. There's one other famous Nazarite in the Bible. Like, this is sort of it only shows up a couple times. The other one is he's so good. Samson. Samson, who famously with the killing of the people with the jawbone of the donkey and like all of this stuff. So I'm going to give you a Nazarite. It took me a minute. I was like, he shall drink neither wine nor intoxicants. What do they have THC in Israel at this time? I don't know. No, because later on she says, I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, nor liquor, nor distilled liquors. I've been pouring out my soul before the Lord. Okay, so if I have a boy, he will be a Nazarite to you. He will not drink wine or liquor, and he will never cut his hair. These are the two qualifications, and this is why Samson later, when his hair gets cut, loses his powers. Don't play. Eli is also kind of a jerk. Sees her praying, and sees her praying, moving her lips, but not talking. Friends, sidebar. We can now resolve a bunch of this kind of stuff by people wearing Bluetooth headsets. But seriously, if you see somebody else talking to themselves, maybe they're just talking to themselves. You don't gotta like, you don't gotta be weird about it. Some people just talk. Neurodiversity is real. It's fine. So Hannah was praying silently. Her lips moved. Eli said, "How like you're obviously drunk." Anytime anybody in the Bible says you're obviously drunk, they are in the wrong. Just FYI, this shows up. Hannah answers, "No, my lord, I'm a woman deeply troubled. I'm not drunk. I've been pouring out my soul. Don't regard me as worthless. I've been speaking out of my great anxiety and vexation." Does not mention what she's praying for. Not a superstition thing. She just doesn't talk about it. Eli answers, "Go in peace. May the God of Israel grant the petition." And she said, "Let your servant find favor in your sight, Eli." Priest dude. The woman went her way and ate and drank with her husband. She was sad no longer. They rose early in the morning. They worshiped before the Lord. They went back to their house at Ramah. So let me take a moment here. I always think that these things, these little context things, are important. All right, so here is Ramah. No, that's Ramah programs in Israel. No, I want Ramah, Israel. Ramah, Israel. All right, well, let's do this. All right, here is the whole world. Boom, world. I may have to go about this another way, but I always think it's sort of fun now to see the modern map. Oh, right, because yeah, right, because Hebrew is a thing. Okay, let's. Also modern spellings are the thing. Let's call it this. This is probably Ramah. I buy that. Okay, so here's Ramah. And then directions. Yeah, this is, and of course spelled also differently in another place. Okay, Ramah, directions from Shiloh. Not Shiloh, Illinois. Okay. Yeah, let's talk about this for a minute. Okay, so this is by on foot in modern Israel, taking the modern like roads and stuff. This is a this is a 31-hour walking journey, and it includes, let me be clear, almost 4,000 total feet of elevation change. 4,000 meters of elevation change. So you got to go all the way down here to by the Dead Sea, and then all the way back up the hill above the Sea of Galilee. This is a it's still almost 4,000 meters. So like to get from Shiloh, like I would imagine that at the time, and this is just a guess, but imagine at the time they might even have gone like further out, like as far out as not quite Tel Aviv, but like Rosh Hashanah, or like way out here, and then around, because this is a drop. So just a moment of like 31-hour walking, 32-hour walking trip. They probably weren't walking. They probably took like horses and donkeys and stuff. That, depending on how much daylight you have, that's like a 3 or 4 day trip. And it involves, again, 12,000 feet. That's 2,000 up and 2,000 down meters. So it's 4,000 total meters of elevation change. And then times 3 for the conversion. So all you Americans, times 3 as a back of the envelope, it's more than that. It's actually 39 inches. It is almost, the total amount of up and down is almost the same as the elevation from sea level of Mount Rainier. Okay, so just all this for context to say, this was not a casual journey. That they did this every year. Every year they did this haul up and down to go from Shiloh to go from Ramah to Shiloh and back. If anybody on the stream or watching this video later is like, no, it's a different Ramah, I'm fascinated to hear it. Let me know. Always happy to learn. But, and by the way, some of this, especially if you go down this way, this is desolate in the extreme. This is desert. Like, this is, because this is the Great Rift Valley. This is the same hole that creates the Red Sea later, and like it is a giant cliff basically. This is all one fault line, all of which is spreading, and it's a huge drop off just all of a sudden. So this is challenging. Okay, so just that moment of context. They have a long trip back. They rose early in the morning. They worshipped before the Lord. They went back to their house at Ramah. Elkanah knew his wife. Anybody who has not been paying attention, or never went to Sunday school or went to church or anything, this means they had sex. This is how translators for a long time translated. Like, it is literally the Hebrew verb for to know, but they did it. And the Lord remembered her. Oh, Hannah, of course. Hannah, how could I have forgotten? And in due time, Hannah conceived and bore a son. She named him Samuel, which I think the modern Hebrew renders as something like Shmuel. I have asked him of the Lord, so this root SMU would mean something like I asked him. And Hebrew, the Bible does this all the time, where it's like this word, like this name means this thing that it might not actually have meant at the time, but they are definitely trying. Hannah prays and says, "My heart exults." Okay, so this is the story of what happens, and this happens a lot in the Bible. You get the story of what happens, and then you get the prayer that somebody sang after the story happens. Or the song that somebody sings. This happens at the Red Sea and a couple other places. The Red Sea, the defeat of the Egyptians by the Lord, parting the Red Sea, all that. Hannah prays and says, "My heart exults, my strength is exalted, my mouth derides my enemies because I rejoice in your victory." There's a lot going on here in terms of personal pronouns. That was the thing that I noted as I was reading. My mouth derides my enemies because I rejoice in your victory, O Lord. There's no Holy One. I kind of want to know what they're doing there in the Hebrew. I may get back to that. No one besides you. There is no rock like our God. Okay, so my heart exalts in the Lord. I rejoice in your victory. So right here we're talking to God. There's no Holy One like the Lord. No one besides you. Still talking to God. Talk no more so very proudly. Let not arrogance come from your mouth. Probably not God. It's happened. Like I always notice when there's a change in who we're addressing in these prayers, and it happens a lot. That like you got to keep track of who's talking and who's talking to whom. The Lord is God of knowledge. By him actions are weighed. The bows of the mighty are broken. The feeble gird on strength. Those who were full have hired themselves out for bread. Those who are hungry were fat with spoil. The barren is born 7. She who has many children is forlorn. A lot of reversal. A lot of back and forth. The Lord kills and he brings to life. He brings down to Sheol. In Hebrew cosmology, the world rested on a bunch of pillars. Like the ground rested on this pile of pillars. And there was a big dome over the whole thing. And in the space under the pillars was Sheol, was the underworld. And this is not really anything like later Greek conceptions of hell. This is just the pit under the world, the caves and stuff that are down there. And there's a lot happens with Sheol. The Lord makes poor and makes rich. He brings low. He also exalts. He raises up the poor from the dust. He lifts the needy from the ash heap, makes them sit with princes and inherit a seat of honor. For the pillars of the earth, the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and he has set on them he has set the world. He will guard the feet of his faithful ones. The wicked will perish in darkness. For not by might does one prevail. Not by might. My strength is exalted in my God. The Lord. His adversaries will be shattered. The Most High will thunder in heaven. The Lord will judge the ends of the earth. He will give strength to his king and exalt the power of his anointed, but not by might. Interesting stuff. All right, so that was one of the 4 sections we're supposed to get through. All right, we're going to do Daniel, which is short and quick. We'll do Psalm 16, and we'll do Hebrews, and then we'll do Mark. Mark is also reasonably sized. The Samuel stuff is the longest passage by far. And I got to tell the church that I'm not going to preach I may or may, I don't know. Think about it. Okay. Daniel is one of the two books of the Bible that makes a lot more sense. I am told, I myself have no experience with hallucinogens, but I'm told that these all, both Daniel and John's Revelation, make an awful lot more sense if you have found the good stuff. It is wacky. And it's all, like, at the time, it's all metaphorical. They're all talking about their immediate enemies right then. But from our perspective, it just sounds... So Daniel chapter 12, verses 1 through 3. And that's the latter part of Daniel. The whole thing with Daniel and the lion's den, that's fine. It's the later stuff where Daniel has a prophecy, then it's like, whoa, slow your roll, Daniel. At that time, Michael, the great prince, the protector of your people, shall arise. There shall be a time of anguish, such as never before occurred since nations first came into existence. But at that time, your people shall be delivered, everyone who's found written in the book. I think it's safe to assume that earlier it was like, we're going to write down a bunch of people in the book. Many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. Those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the sky, and those who lead the many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. The wise shall shine, and the leaders to the righteous shall shine also. Oh. Psalm 16. Our editor says, fullness of joy. Protect me, O God, for in you I take refuge. I say to the Lord, you are my Lord. I have no good apart from you. As for the holy ones in the land, they are the noble ones in whom is all my delight. Those who choose another god multiply their sorrows. Their drink offerings of blood I will not pour out or take their names upon my lips. The Lord is my chosen portion and my cup. You hold my lot. The boundary lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. I have a goodly heritage. I bless the Lord who gives me counsel. In the night also my heart instructs me. I keep the Lord always before me. Because he is at my right hand, I shall not be moved. Therefore my heart is glad, and my soul rejoices. My body also rests secure, for you do not give me up to Sheol, or let your faithful one see the pit. You show me the path of life. In your presence there is fullness of joy. In your right hand are pleasures forevermore. Did you notice that some of the same stuff that showed up in Hannah's song, he brings down to Sheol and raises up, also shows up in Psalm 16. Do not give me up to Sheol, or let your faithful one see the pit. This is one of the reasons that we do the lectionary, is because it tightens up, like, they have done a little bit of work to be like, there are some things that are in common here. These things sort of make sense together, might be worth thinking about. Let's see here. Protect me, O God, you're my Lord. As for the holy ones, this shows up again in another passage. They are the noble ones. Let's choose another God, multiply their sorrows. I definitely tripped over their drink offerings of blood. I mean, these are libations. Like, this is a completely common religious practice in the ancient Near East, but, like, their drink offerings of blood? Okay, cool. Usually, I think people just use wine. I will not pour out or take their names upon my lips. These other gods. Blech. Other gods. The Lord is... by the way, worth saying, this, you can sort of watch the evolution of Hebrew cosmology from what is called monolatry. We only worship the one, this one God. Of all the gods, this is our God. We only worship him. Into monotheism. And you can sort of track when is stuff written based on how hard they're going on the Lord is the only God versus the Lord is the best God, like those being two different statements. So let's choose another God, multiply their sorrows. There are other gods that you could choose, but don't do that. This God is better. Very different than some later stuff where it's like, the Lord is the only God. It's just God. It's just the Lord. Don't even bother. Don't front. Show me the path of life. In your presence there's fullness of joy, and your right there are pleasures forevermore. Okay. So these are two choices that I could make. I can either, just scroll back to the top and say, I can either do the 1 Samuel, the two passages there, or I can do the Daniel and the Psalm 16, or I can do the Hebrews that I'm about to do. I'm almost certainly going to do the Mark passage. We'll take a look. And then, of course, I don't have to do any of that. I could be like, I only want to do part of the Samuel, which is probably true, or something similar. Hebrews 10, 11 to 25, with a possible duck out for verses 15 through 18. So I'm actually just going to highlight those so when I get to them, I'm like, oh, wait. All right. So Hebrews 10 through 11. Hebrews is a letter that theoretically Paul wrote to the Hebrews, those Christians, those followers of Christ who were coming from the Hebrew people, wherever they were residing at the time. Hebrews is like dense. There's like a lot of content in there. And so I don't often preach it because the lectionary texts for it are too long for me to actually get into the meat of like what Paul is trying to do here. I'm probably just going to read this one and say I'm just not going to do it. On some other occasion, I will do a Hebrews passage and we can like really dive in to exactly what Paul is up to, but we're just going to read it right now and see if I'm wrong. The way to God through Christ. Chapter 10, starting with verse 11. And every priest stands day after day at his service, offering again and again the same sacrifices that can never take away sins. Sidebar. To be a priest means that you offer sacrifices. This is why Catholics and Episcopalians have priests, because for them, the Lord's Supper is like very literally rehearsing the sacrifice of Christ. Whereas for most of the other Protestants, they do not have priests because we're not doing the sacrifice. We already did the sacrifice. We're done with the sacrificing. Not required anymore. Which is what Paul alludes to right here. But when Christ had offered for all time a single sacrifice for sins, he sat down at the right hand of God, and since then has been waiting until his enemies would be made a footstool for his feet. Those quotations are from somewhere in the Hebrew Bible, probably the Psalms. Almost certainly my next text will like show you where those things are from if we did it. For by a single offering he has perfected for all time those who are sanctified. He's perfected. He's finished them, all the sanctified. This is optional. And the Holy Spirit also testifies to us, for after saying, this is the covenant that I will make with them after those days, says the Lord, I will put my laws in their hearts and I will write them on their minds. And he adds, I will remember their sins and their lawless deeds no more. Where there is forgiveness of these, there is no longer any offering for sin. You don't need to do offerings if there's no sin. Therefore, my brothers and sisters, since we have confidence to enter the sanctuary by the blood of Jesus, by the new and living way that he opened for us through the curtain, that is, through his flesh, and since we have a great priest over the house of God, let us approach with a true heart, in full assurance of faith, with our hearts sprinkled clean from an evil conscience, and our bodies washed with pure water. Let us hold fast to the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who has promised is faithful. And let us consider how to provoke one another to love and good deeds, not neglecting to meet together as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. Friends, I hope that today I'm able to provoke you to love and good deeds. Provoke you to love and good deeds. I'm not going to preach this. I'm not going to preach it. I'm sitting here going, the amount of I like a good 8-minute sermon. An 8-minute sermon fits my attention span. I am the ADHD preacher. I can do a 15 if I forget to stop. And I've done a 20 because I forgot to stop really hard. I cannot do this Hebrews passage. Like, I would have to just do the Hebrews passage and nothing else, because there's too much context going on, and I don't even feel like talking to you all about it right now. So, I'm not doing it. We're not dealing with it. Mark's Gospel, chapter 13, verses 1 through 8. As previously noted, there are 4 Gospels. They each do something slightly different, telling the story of Jesus. There are actually more than that, but there are 4 that we are concerning ourselves with today. Mark's Gospel is A, the short one, B, the accessible one, and C, the one where Jesus obviously is not putting up with any of your unjust BS. Like, this is the one where Jesus is the most on about widows and orphans and taking care of one another and justice and not being a jerk and let me be clear, social justice. This is Christ saying, don't be evil in your relationships with your neighbors. Stop it. So that's the heart of Mark's Gospel. It's very, very, it is the justice gospel, and he's going to go hard on those things. I'm I haven't read this yet, so I don't know exactly where he's going to go with it. I know where he's going to go. But this is the shortest, most accessible. The Greek is the simplest. Like, this is if you only read one gospel and are trying, like, what is this Jesus guy about? Mark's gospel is the place to start. As he, that is Jesus, came out of the temple, one of his disciples, it was probably Peter, said to him, "Look, teacher, what large stones and what large buildings." And then Jesus asked him, "Do you see these great buildings? Not one stone will be left here upon another. All will be thrown down." And when he was sitting on the Mount of Olives opposite the temple, Peter, James, John, and Andrew asked him privately, "Tell us, when will this be, and when will be the sign that all these things are about to be accomplished?" Then Jesus began to say to them, "Beware that no one leads you astray. Many will come in my name and say, 'I am he,' and they will lead many astray. When you hear of wars and rumors of wars, do not be alarmed. This must take place, but the end is still to come. For nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be earthquakes in various places. There will be famines. This is but the beginning of the birth pangs." I might have to shift direction here. For a moment of context, I was blessed a few years ago to be able to go to Israel for work, and had the opportunity to sort of wander around Jerusalem. And there should be a photo right here that will now open in another place. Did I get a better photo than that? Yeah, there we go. All right. So, I know how this works. I know how to do this. Show me the. I realize that none of you can see this, and I apologize. But what I'm doing is, where are all of my buttons? What have they done to? What have they done to Windows, my friends? I don't. All right, is this it? Yes, it's that one. Okay, open with. Choose another app. More apps. Seriously, look for another app. This should be easier than it is. Chrome, application, Chrome, open. Haha! Victory is mine. So this is me on the Mount of Olives. I am sitting on a sort of, there's a park at the top of the Mount of Olives from which you can overlook the city. And this right here is Al-Aqsa Mosque. It is built in the same place as the traditional temple of the Hebrews. And so when Peter is saying, wow, look at all the big rocks and stuff, he is talking about this hillside, this Temple Mount. And I might have a picture somewhere of like exactly which stones he's talking about. But this is like the Mount of Olives shows up a whole bunch in the Gospels. And one of the reasons is it's the hill from which you can really see the temple, and the temple was such a central point of Jewish worship. Okay. I was gonna land, I think, basically on this 1 Samuel 2 song. I was gonna do this bit. Because this is so spoiler alert, all pastors really only have like 4 sermons, sometimes 3. By the way, thanks Bessie Plays All Day and Enemy K. Appreciate you. Pastors only have like 4 sermons. So like, you, especially a congregation that you don't know well, you haven't preached at very often, the temptation is to preach one of the best versions of one of your 4 sermons. Like, and I was talking, my mom, also a pastor, we were talking about this, and like, I can tell you which of my sermons I'm preaching in any given moment. So this is one of my favorite sermons right here, is what I call the God who stood on his head, or the God of the unexpected. This is the thing of like, the God of Christianity, the God of Abraham and of Isaac and of Jacob, is a God of doing the thing that you're not expecting him to do. The traditional viewpoint of God is that God is like the one who has raised up the lofty. And that is not how the Hebrew God works. The Hebrew God does not pick the best guy. He picks the least, like not the worst guy, but like the least good guy, and then exalts that guy. So this is how like David is selected. There's a whole bunch of stuff about Christ that is like, does anything good come out of Nazareth? Like, this is the story of, if you're going to have a God, personal opinion, if you're going to have a God who like isn't about making the wealthy wealthier, who is not about making the powerful more powerful. Get you a God who is going to break oppression, who's going to free captives. Get you a God who does the unexpected. Because we already expect, like, we can handle the expected stuff. We can take care of it. Like, we've got it. Humans, we've got this. We need a God who's going to break us of the habit. So that's my like default direction I'm going. But now I'm sitting here staring at the Mark passage and going like, oh, that's not really where Mark's gospel is headed. Not in this passage anyway. As he came out of the temple, one of the disciples said to him, look, teacher, what large stones and what large buildings? And Jesus asked him, do you see these big buildings? Not one stone will be left here upon another. All will be thrown down. At the time that this was written, this conversation was written down, this had come to pass, that the temple had been destroyed. So there's definitely a moment of like, Jesus called it. And when Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives opposite the temple, Peter, James, John, and Andrew asked him privately, tell us, when will this be? What will be the sign that all these things are about to be accomplished? And Jesus began to say to them, I love when Jesus is like, I don't care about you. Like, I love you guys. You're asking the wrong questions. Tell us, when is this happening? Like, can we put this on the calendar? Is this next week? Like, when is this going? Beware that no one leads you astray. Many will come in my name and say, I am he, and they will lead many astray. When you hear of wars and rumors of wars, do not be alarmed. This must take place, for the end is still to come. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be earthquakes in various places. There will be famines. This is but the beginning of the birth pangs. I'm doing big things over here. All right, let's pretend for a moment that we're definitely going to do, like, as I said, we're going to do the mark. We're absolutely going to do the mark. If we didn't do the Samuel, and instead we did the Daniel, then what's the sermon? A good pastor friend of mine was not quite venting, but sort of arguing on Facebook and was saying something effective. Now is not the moment for eschatology, which is a big fancy Christian word for don't try to explain to us what we believe right now. I said this is the moment for practical theology. This is a moment for what should we do. And I know that's rattling around in my head as I'm staring at this text, going, I think, tell us when will this be and what will be the sign that these things are all about to be accomplished. And Jesus says, beware that no one leads you astray. Many will come in my name and say, I am he, and they will lead many astray. When you hear wars and rumors of wars, do not be alarmed. This must take place, but the end is still to come. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be earthquakes in various places. There will be famines. This is but the beginning of the birth pangs. And again, Christ here is talking about a thing that was going to happen soon. Like, this was This took place within the next 50 years. By the way, if my desktop audio, oh, hey, I know what I can do. So like Christ was very on point. And then his disciples asked him, when is this going to happen? And Jesus replies, don't. And like my inclination with Jesus is to say, don't get caught up in when is this going to happen? Beware that no one leads you astray. Like, don't focus on the when is this going to happen. This is but the beginning of the birth pangs sub-implication, because like it's my interpretation here is it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter when it's going to happen. Your responsibility remains the same. That doesn't really, Jesus doesn't land on that point in a way that it would be very helpful for me right now. So if I were going to do Daniel and Psalm 16 and Mark, many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. The wise shall shine, and those who lead the many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. And then Mark, long pause. Because sometimes I'm like, now we're really showing the cards. This is, I had a mild thing when I was first going to do this. I was like, other pastors don't do this. And part of that is because other pastors have congregations that like, you want to not spoiler. I didn't actually tell South I was going to do this. I think I'm going to let them know, because I'm probably preaching there again in January and be like, hey guys, if you want to. But one of the reasons I think that you don't do this process live streamed on Twitch, most people, is because you get stuck like this. And I think that's good. I think that's a great like moment for us to confess as pastors and as people that sometimes, even when it's like cherry-picked passages of scripture, you encounter them and you don't quite know what you're going to do with them. My temptation now is to say, I told the church already, because they asked, that I was going to do Samuel and Mark. And my temptation is to say, okay, let's just roll with that and find out what happens if we get into the text another layer deeper. So let's do that. Okay, so now this is the real magic, by the way. This is the thing that I do. This is where we get to like, wow, I have been doing this for a while. So take the text, copy it. I'm going to paste it here. Select these. I'm going to cut the Daniel and the Hebrews. Select all this. I'm actually going to select that. X. I believe it is Control Shift V. Yeah, boom. And then I'm going to do, actually I'm going to do home. And then copy this and paste it there. And I don't know what just happened, but it was a lot. All right. Take all that. Go to BG Bible Gateway. Tag into that. Oh, wow. Hey, it all came up right at once. Thanks to whoever, possibly in Denver, I have a viewer, listener, watcher who says, hey, you got a lot of ads out there. What if you did this in reading mode? Which I thought was going to be really obvious to me, but it is not. Reading mode. Boom. And it only did the mat, only did one of the passages. Oh, right, because it didn't like the interpretation on that one. Okay, so let's just do this. Boink. Oh. Yeah, that's great. Okay, cool. Thank you, Bible Gateway. I love you. Let's make sure actually that I did the CEV correctly. Yep, boom. Thanks, Bible Gateway. All right, same passages. Now we're going to review them in the Common English Bible, Common English, and then we'll do it around again. Whenever he sacrificed, Elkanah would give parts of the sacrifice to his wife Peninnah and to all her sons and daughters. Only one. Whoa, 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 whoa. That is a different read. Whew. Sorry. I don't think I've ever seen that gloss before. On the day when Elkanah sacrificed, he would give portions to his wife and all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah he would give a double portion because he loved her, though the Lord had closed her womb. Common English Bible reads, he would give only one part of it to Hannah, though he loved her, because the Lord had kept her from conceiving. And because the Lord had kept Hannah from conceiving, her rival would make fun of her mercilessly just to bother her. So that's what would take place year after year. Whenever Hannah went to the Lord's house, Peninnah would make fun of her, then she would cry and wouldn't eat anything. I am now going to have to... man. We might get into the Hebrew on this one because that is a fascinating change. All right. Hebrew uncertain. Syriac, one of the other... Yeah, okay, sorry. I got to pull the footnote up here so you can read it. The Hebrew is uncertain, but he would give a double portion to Hannah because he loved her, that the Lord kept her from conceiving. Almost certainly part of what's going on there is the Hebrew particle vav that goes at the beginning of a word means both and but. So it's either and, or it's but, or it's and, but, like it could be anything. So like I can totally see how that would happen. It's the double portion thing. It's he would give only one part of it or a double part of it to Hannah that really makes the change. Because the Lord had kept Hannah from conceiving, so that is what took place year after year. You can also use the print button over the passages. I think I like this better. I'd have to look at it, but I think I like because I like dark theme. Although my head is in the way. I'll give it some thought. Thank you, Andy K. I think I know who you are. I think I found you. Thanks for being here. All right. Poor Hannah. Hannah, why are you crying? Clueless. Say to her, why don't you eat? Why are you so sad? Why is your heart so sad? Am I not worth more to you than 10 sons? I who am not, like, yeah, you're getting enough food, but I could be being nicer to you. Once, after eating and drinking in Shiloh, Hannah got up and presented herself before the Lord. She goes into the temple. This is where that asterisk, the Textus Receptus, the Hebrew received text, doesn't have before the Lord. They're pulling from the Greek version. So it could just be Hannah got up and presented herself. Boink. Now, Eli the priest was sitting in the chair by the doorpost of the Lord's temple. Just kind of watching the door. And was very upset and couldn't stop crying as she prayed to the Lord. Then she made this promise, Lord of heavenly forces, which is a very common English Bible way to do that. Lord of hosts, yeah, Lord of heavenly forces. Just look at your servant's pain and remember me. Don't forget your servant. Give her a boy, then I'll give him to the Lord for his entire life. No razor will ever touch his head. We're entirely just skipping the booze. All right. As she kept praying before the Lord, Eli watched her mouth. Now Hannah was praying in her heart. Her lips were moving, but her voice was silent. So Eli thought she was drunk. Okay, sure. How long will you act like a drunk? Sober up, Eli told her. No, sir. Hannah replied, I'm just a very sad woman. I haven't had any wine or beer, but have been pouring out my heart to the Lord. Don't think your servant is some good-for-nothing woman. This whole time I've been praying out my great worry and trouble. Eli responded, then, okay, go in peace. And may the God of Israel give what you've asked for. Which now, even more so in this read, I'm like, that is Eli trying to get rid of her. Like, just go. Thank you. Bezzy Plays All Day, who I also think I know who you are, and it's great to see you if I'm right. King James gives that as a worthy portion. We're gonna have to get into the Hebrew here, and possibly the Septuagint as well, just to lock that down. So yeah, this is Eli going, get, that's fine. Go in peace. I have been the pastor who has said this to people. I've been the like, oh, okay, this conversation needs to end now. Partially because I seriously embarrassed myself, and partially because that was a lot of energy. But may the God of Israel give whatever it is you're looking for. Please think well of me, your servant, Hannah said. And then the woman went on her way. She ate some food and wasn't sad any longer. I like the transition. MT lacks sad. So in the Hebrew received text, it just goes, then the woman went on her way. She ate some food and she was not any longer. The Hebrew might be unusually fun here. I don't know. Let's get back to it. They got up early the next morning. They worshipped the Lord. They went back home to Ramah. Yeah, see? Thank you. Elkanah had sex with his wife Hannah. Whoa. It does not, the reading mode does not like me highlighting. Elkanah had sex with his wife Hannah, and the Lord remembered her. Oh, Hannah. So in the course of time, Hannah conceived. She gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, which means I asked the Lord for him. Samuel means God has heard, but here is connected to the Hebrew verb for to ask. This is one of those moments where I bet you this is like a Hebrew active passive, or Hebrew was so long ago. There's a thing where this makes sense, where the verb for to say, or for the verb for to hear and the verb for to ask, like might be the same verb, but you like might do different shapes around it. It's a whole thing. Okay. Hannah prays, my heart rejoices in the Lord, my strength I wanted to see here. My horn. My horn rises up in the Lord. I'm going to toot. That's good. My heart, my horn. Maybe she's secretly a unicorn. My mouth mocks my enemies because I rejoice in your deliverance. No one is holy like the Lord. No rock. Don't go on and on talking so proudly, spouting arrogance, because the Lord is the God who knows, and he weighs every act. The bows of the mighty warriors are shattered, but those who were stumbling now dress themselves in power. Those who were filled full now sell themselves for bread, but the ones who are starving now are fat from food. That's a lot. The woman who was barren has birthed 7 children, but the mother with many sons has lost them all. That's even more like pointed than the NRSV there. The Lord, he brings death, gives life, takes down to the grave, and rises up. Yeah, he takes down to Sheol, the grave, right? We talked about that. He makes poor, gives wealth, brings low, lifts up high. God raises the poor from the dust, lifts up the needy from the garbage pile. God sits them with officials, gives them the seat of honor. The pillars of the earth belong to the Lord. He set the world on top of them. God guards the feet of his faithful ones. The wicked die in darkness because no one succeeds by strength alone. I like that better. That does a better job on the strength. Yeah. The Lord, his enemies are terrified. God thunders against them from heaven. The Lord, he judges the far corners of the earth. May God give strength to his king and raise high the strength of his anointed one. Okay. Temple spanked. As Jesus left the temple, one of his disciples said to him, "Teacher, look what awesome." What? I do like the viewpoint that the disciples are like a bunch of teenagers, sort of idiots, wandering around following Jesus going, oh man, Lord, look what awesome stuff. Peter especially definitely reads to me as like teacher's pet, whole thing. Jesus responded, you see those enormous buildings? Not even one stone will be left upon another. All will be demolished. I'm going to wreck all this. Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives across from the temple. Peter, James, John, and Andrew asked him privately, tell us, when will these things happen? What sign will show that all these things are about to come to an end? And Jesus said, I'm sorry, I needed that hand job. Watch out that no one deceives you. Many people will come in my name saying, I'm the one. They will deceive many people. When you hear of wars and reports of wars, don't be alarmed. These things must happen, but this isn't the end yet. Nations and kingdoms will fight against each other, and there will be earthquakes and famines in all sorts of places. These things are just the beginning of the sufferings associated with the end. Okay. I think I am, with that reading, I think I feel better about don't be surprised. Don't be surprised when God does the surprising. I think is the takeaway there. Okay, we're gonna spend a minute on. We're at the 1 hour mark. It's good. I'm just getting into the text, into the original languages now. All right, I got to see this 1 Samuel. Are we at 4? 1 Samuel 1. 1 Samuel chapter 1. I want to see the MT. No, the New Testament. No, I don't want that. I want the. It's also the Greek, isn't it? Westminster Leningrad. That's the Septuagint. It's the Textus Receptus, which is not the Hebrew, right? Yeah, that's what I thought. I don't want the Vulgate. I mean, I do want the Vulgate, but that's not useful. SVD, Smith Van Dyck, Arabic, Reina Valera, Chinese traditional, Espanol modern, Korean, I'm pretty sure, Louis II, Luther, Russian. Hebrew names, Webster, Darby, New Living, NIV, SVD, New American Standard, Legacy Standard, Amplified, New English Translation, the Revised Standard, American Standard, Young's Literal. I'm just going to have to do this through the King James and just deal, because it should be. All right, 1 Samuel 1. Woo! Ramathaim Zophim. All right, we're going to. That's a lot. Tools, interlinear. All right, and when? Chaya Yom, and when the day was Zava, that Elkanah, which I need to look at what Kana is doing there, offered. Oh, right. When the day came that Elkanah was offering, Nathan, he gave to Peninnah, his wife, Cole, and to all their sons and daughters, all her sons and her daughters, Benbat, the Benvabat, mana portions. Okay. But unto Hannah he gave a worthy portion. Yeah, this is the up, which we could dive way into. Okay. That's wild. So this is the thing where God is slow to anger. I'm willing to bet I can double check this. But God is slow to anger is he's got a long nose. Did I click the right one? A worthy portion. Afim. All right. Well, yeah, this is a worthy portion. Page 639. Worthy. Shows up one time as worthy. This is the one time that it shows up as worthy. Hence the face, occasionally person. Ire, anger, suffering, knows. Worthy, wrath. Wild. Sure. This is this kind of moment where I'm like, the King James kids, sometimes I just feel like they were phoning it in. All right. For he loved her. And this is the key, like this has this ambiguity in it where you'd be like, it could mean for, it could mean, although, yeah. But the Lord had shut up her womb. Adversary provoked her sore for to make her fret because the Lord had shut up her womb. And this is Rosh Hashanah, so Shana. When the day, Indeed, sure. She went to the house of the Lord by Yehovah. Whoa, she provoked her. Peninnah provoked her. I was like, he provoked her. Yeah, I think I have realized that, especially as an early streamer, I think I have about an hour in me, and then I am starting to fade in terms of my ability to talk and also to read Hebrew, which is never. Hebrew is, in case you hadn't heard me say this, Hebrew is not my strong language. Both my Greek and my Latin are much, much better. So it's really tough for me to like. I remember some of the things and I can sort of see what's going on, but it is less useful. Um, I, you get a choice when you do your exams. You can do Hebrew or Greek, and I was like Greek. Um, Shout about instead of Lord of Hosts. No. Okay. So this is enough to be going on with. I'm gonna tell them what I am gonna tell them. Having now dealt with all this, is I'm going to say just basically. I think I'm not going to do. I think I want to do Hannah's song, but I want to break it up somehow. So I'm actually going to ask them, hey, is there a way to break up so we're not doing 3 long passages? And there's a couple ways that I'm thinking of. So, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to preach Samuel and Mark. And again, the thing is, don't be surprised when God does something surprising. And a sub point here on like it's so tempting, especially in days like this, to be like, the world is coming to an end, but there will be earthquakes and there'll be famines and nations will fight, and that is bad. It's a bad thing that is happening, but that is not the end. That was, is, and will be the beginning of the end, and the end we will see when we see. But in the meantime, don't be surprised when God does something surprising. I think that's where I'm going to head. And I think that's where I'm going to leave you for now. Thank you, everybody who joined the stream, for joining the stream. This was great. I intend, and I might actually get it done like now, to do a video of like the 1 minute, a YouTube short, basically. It's a TikTok, but I'm not going to do TikTok for hashtag reasons. I'm going to do a 1 minute version of the sermon, and that should go up on the YouTube channel, which ideally I'm going to rename so it's easier to find. But it is linked in the Twitch. And I'm going to do, just to do some credits, to do a reminder, delete all that. Blank. Yeah, don't be surprised. Control-Alt-0 removes all unnecessary formatting, returns everything to the baseline. We're not going to do this on the epistle. There's nothing I had, but thank you, Amateur Fantasy Edits on DeviantArt. Thank you, Revised Common Lectionary from Vanderbilt. Thank you, Vanderbilt University, as always. Bible Gateway, sponsor me. BlueLetterBible.org, very useful resource. Give them a shout out. And to my I have 2 followers, bros. Thank you both. And to my 2 chatters today, thank you. It's great to see you both. And have a good one. I'll have some content up later this week. Take it easy.